In 1916, a grocer in Memphis rebuilt the way people buy food and then patented the walk itself. Much of this story sounds invented, the records say otherwise. Listen for what exactly he patented. Here we go. One September morning in 1916, at 79 Jefferson in Memphis, Tennessee, a grocer named Clarence Saunders opened a store in which his clerks would no longer fetch the goods. At the entrance stood a turnstile. Each customer pushed through it and was loaned a basket, wood, or wicker for use inside. Past the turnstile, there were no clerks waiting to serve, only goods, prices, and a path. To feel how strange that morning was, you need to know what buying groceries had meant until then. In most American groceries of the time, you did not pick anything up yourself. You handed a written list across a wooden counter, or you asked, and a clerk did the rest. He scooped flour and beans out of a barrel, weighed sugar from a sack, cut cheese and bacon to order, and totaled the bill by hand, often on the back of a paper sack. In most stores, the goods were kept where the customer could not reach them, behind or beside the counter. Fixed prices were already common by then, the trouble was reading them. Usually, you asked a clerk what something cost, and he told you. Shopping was a conversation, and every minute of that conversation required staff. Saunders reversed nearly every element at once. His goods stood on open shelves, and the shopper took what she wanted from the shelf with her own hands. In the stores, a swinging price tag hung in front of each kind and size of merchandise, showing the cost in plain figures. The company's own advertising promised shopping without quibbling over prices. Before, you asked what it cost. Now, you read it. And the building decided how you moved. From a single entrance, one continuous path wound past every shelf to a counter beside the exit, where the goods were checked, the bill was rung up on an adding machine, and everything was wrapped. You paid once at the end. Here is the part that sounds invented. To Saunders, that path was the invention. On October 21, 1916, about 6 weeks after opening day, Saunders filed a patent application, not for a machine, but for the store itself. U.S. Patent 1,242,872, self-serving store, was granted the following October. It describes display cabinets arranged so that the goods can be selected and taken by the customers themselves, in the patent's own words, while making a circuitous path through the store. The claims require one continuous passageway from the entrance to the exit. The gates in the design opened one way only, moved by the weight of the person walking in. The building, not the shopper, chose the direction. And Saunders stated his purpose in the document itself. The customer would be enabled to serve himself and, in so doing, would be required to review the entire assortment of goods carried in stock. The freedom to take was, by design, an obligation to walk past everything. Was it the first self-service grocery on Earth? The record says no. There were earlier experiments in California, in Montana, and elsewhere. What Saunders built was the version that became a system, patented, standardized, and franchised. Independent grocers put up their own capital, built stores to his design under his brand name, Piggly Wiggly, and paid his corporation a small share of everything they sold. Within about 6 years, there were more than 1,000 of them. An idea that fit inside one Tennessee storefront had become a machine for multiplying itself. Let's pause for language. 3 objects that carry this story. A turnstile is a rotating gate that lets people pass one at a time, in one direction. You still push through a turnstile at a subway station. A price tag is a small label showing what something costs. In this store, price tags swung on hangers in front of the goods. A counter is the long, flat surface where a shop serves you. Most old grocers kept their goods behind or beside the counter, and Saunders moved the counter to the exit. Now the second act, which is shorter and steeper. In February 1922, less than 6 years after the first store opened, the company's shares were listed on the New York Stock Exchange. By late 1922, the stock had been sold short heavily, traders betting that the price would fall. In the language of the market, One answer to that is a corner, buying up so much of a stock that anyone who owes shares has to come to you. Saunders began buying. He borrowed roughly $10 million from banks and investors, and by March 1923, he claimed to control 198,872 of the 200,000 outstanding shares. The man who had made a fortune by putting goods into other people's hands was now trying to hold essentially every share of his own company in his own. By his own count, he was 1,128 shares short of all of them. On Tuesday, March 20, 1923, Saunders called in the shares he had lent out and demanded delivery. Whoever had sold stock they did not own now had to produce it, and nearly all of it sat in his hands. The stock had traded near $39 late in 1922. That Tuesday it opened around 75, and by midday it touched about 124. Then the market closed, and the exchange's governing committee announced two procedural actions. It suspended trading in the stock, and it extended the deadline for delivering the borrowed shares by about 5 days until the following Monday instead of the usual next day. The extra time let shares held far from New York reach the market. The short sellers delivered. The corner did not produce the settlement Saunders had called for. What remained was arithmetic. The borrowed millions came due in stages, about $2.5 million on September 1, 1923, and the rest at New Year, and Saunders did not have the September amount. On August 12, 1923, he resigned as president of the company he had founded. The date survives as a finding of fact in a federal court record. He turned over his stock and his personal property to his creditors, including an unfinished mansion faced with pink Georgia marble, which he never lived in. Note carefully what did not happen. The chain did not fail. It kept operating and kept growing, reaching roughly 2,660 stores by 1932. His idea reached its greatest size without him. Language again, 3 more objects. A barrel is a large, round wooden container. The old clerk scooped flour and beans out of a barrel. A shelf is a flat board, fixed to a wall or a frame for holding things. Saunders put his goods on open shelves that shoppers could reach. A mansion is a very large, expensive house. Saunders poured part of his fortune into a marble mansion that was never finished. He was not finished with stores. In 1937, back in Memphis, he opened an automated grocery called Kiduzal, and it inverted his own invention. The customer no longer touched the goods at all. Shoppers put a key into a slot in front of a glass display window, and the chosen items traveled to the front on chutes and a conveyor. He tried it 3 times, 1937, 1939, 1948, and it failed every time. The circuits crossed, customers were sent the wrong goods, and at peak hours the machinery could not keep up. When he died of heart failure in October 1953, at 72, he was designing yet another store, Food Electric, in which the shopper would total the bill on a device loaned at the door, an ancestor of today's self-checkout. It was planned for a site 2 blocks from the first 1916 store. It never opened. Here is the pattern worth keeping, because it is rarer than a simple rise and fall. This career is one variable changing sign inside one man. In 1916, he made his fortune by letting go. He put the goods into the customer's hands. In 1923, he lost it by holding on. He tried to grip nearly every one of the 200,000 shares, by his own count, all but 1,128. In 1937, the sign flipped again, and he sealed the goods behind glass where no hand could reach them. Even the patent fits the pattern build first, claim ownership 6 weeks later. Watch for that shape in other lives. The instinct that creates an open system can be the same instinct that later tries to own it completely. Let's check what stayed with you. 1. The 1916 patent did not claim a machine. What did it claim? 2. After the market closed on March 20, 1923, the exchange announced 2 procedural actions. Can you name both? 3. In the Keydoozle store, what could the customer no longer do? Say your answers aloud, retrieval is what fixes them. If any section slipped past you, replay the Tuesday in March. Numbers settle on a second listen. This week, use the 6 words in sentences of your own. A turnstile, a price tag, a counter, a barrel, a shelf, a mansion. Next time, another true story that sounds carefully invented. Thanks for listening.